Burke, Chantel Crowell, Jodie Cunningham, Amy Hardcastle, Tara Jones, Emily Rudge, Paige Travis, and Naomi Williams, all from St Helens. Grace Field, Casey Gentles, Sonny Hoyle, Lacey Owen, Sinead Peach, Georgia Roach, and Tara Jane Stanley, all from Cast Tigers. Rebecca Greenfield, Victoria Molyneux, Rachel Thompson, and Georgia Wilson, all from Wigan Warriors. Roxette Murdoch from the Warrington Wolves, and Carrie Roberts representing the British Army.
Anyone got any take on Roxy Murdoch, Roxy whatever, Roxy Murdoch getting in the side when she's going to be off playing for New Zealand next year?
It's a little bit odd, isn't it? Unless we're just hoping to, grab a bit of her experience.
Well, I suppose, how long has she been here? Does she now qualify? Depends what the qualification rules are.
Well, she's
are we trying to play her in an international so we can bag her for this World Cup cycle?
Well, it's certainly a second year at Warrington, and she had a year at St Helens before that. In terms of playing, in terms of living here, Ben Murdoch-Masilla moved over here to play for Salford in 2014? Will it have been?
14 or 15, yeah.
So on that basis, I guess she satisfies the criteria. I mean, another person who seems a really good, strong character and that sort of stuff, so it would be great to have around that group. And like you say, sort of Tim, someone with a bit of experience as well, and no shortage of talent. But it just seems like a weird call to have her in the squad when she's not going to be around our competition any longer. And I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't actually end up playing for England. But
given there might not be any England games between now and when she goes home.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. One thing that does jump out, even just reading that you're reading through that squad list there, Alan, is so few of the names are names I don't recognise now by this stage. Like, there's so few of the players that I can't say, oh, they play in that position, they're that sort of player, which all talks to the development of the women's game, and hopefully we get the opportunity for that to be continued this year.
Yeah, I mean, they've all. I mean, you look at those names, and the vast majority of those players have taken place. Have played in big finals, haven't they, over the last couple of years?
Yeah.
So they've had, as you said, they've had that exposure to a different level of competition, and they've gained a level of recognition that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So names like Fran Goldthorpe, obviously, playing so well in the Challenge Cup final last year, things like that. Players that you really have a recognition of that you wouldn't have had done so before.
Yeah, Rachel Thompson scored a hat-trick in a grand final. Georgia Wilson scored in finals. And then you've got those Leeds, Saints and Cast players who are the three pinnacle clubs right now as well, that are all coming through strong. And it's a pretty young squad for the most part.
Very young squad, as well.
Yeah. You've got a few. Jodie Cunningham, Emily Rudge, you'd have to say now as well, in that kind, and Rachel Thompson maybe arguably as well, but in that kind of more experienced, kind of leadership role positions that they'd have, and certainly Amy Hardcastle, who we talked about already, but then there's lots of young girls in that team as well.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting squad though. It seems to have made a good selection from the available group.
Yeah, we have to at some point try and get some interviews for some of these women's players. They might be easier to get hold of than some of the male players, but at the same time they might be less easy to get hold of because they've all got jobs. Other than Caitlin Beavers, who's appealing for people to give her a job right now, and from everything we can tell from that young lady, she'd be a fantastic person to have on your staff, part-time or full-time, if you're in the Leeds area. So, reach out to Caitlin on Twitter because she's appealing for someone to give her a job. A couple of other stories. Huddersfield Giants have announced that another one of their young talents, Jake Wardle, has signed a contract extension. This player they've kept on a deal to the end of 2023, so tying him up sort of medium term there. Very, very talented young kid in the centres. And Castleford Tigers fullback Jordan Rankin has left the club immediately by mutual consent. The Australian is set to return home to Australia this week and will not return to Castleford when the season gets back underway. The Tigers did not stand in the way of the 28-year-old who will be replaced by Niall Evalds next season. So, anyone got any views on that? Resident Cast fan, Al?
I was saying that, I think Rankin's probably been a force for good in that team, but more than any of us thought possible at the time when he signed on loan. But yeah, so I think it's the longest loan in history. But yeah, they're finally letting him go back now. So, but yeah, no, he's been a good player. But yeah, I think they've probably it's an upgrade for next year if it ends up being next year when he comes across.
Sarah, Jordan Rankin played a little bit at Hull, didn't he? Kind of a Swiss Army knife type player, could fit in anywhere in the backs.
Yeah, really liked him as a player. But I think he's a player that at Hull, certainly his flexibility almost cost him because he didn't ever nail down a position. So, yeah, because he could play 1 to 6, but
I think
he was probably
your second best player in your squad at every position.
I was going to say, yeah. And he was still very, very young when he signed for us, and inexperienced, really. But yeah, really likeable, one that would really get your fans going and all the rest of it. But yeah, as you say, sort of, and I not even necessarily your second best player in every position, but there was an established player in every position.
And I think the same is the case with Casper next year now that they got Evolds, isn't it, at fullback? It kind of reverts back to him not being the standout player at any of them positions within your squad list.
Yeah, and he's got to dislodge someone, and they've got to be out for long enough that he can sort of make that position his own. And I don't think, certainly at Hull, that didn't ever happen. He came over, I think, to be a half-back, and that didn't quite work.
At 28, Tim, do you think that this isn't the last we've seen of Jordan Rankin in the Super League?
I think he's going to be good. He's a good value player to have in your squad, isn't he, to cover that any injuries, and he's, if you can get him for cheap, he's worth picking up. I think. So, yeah, I can see that he's still got some value. I think he's someone who's going to have a fair bit of experience. He's going to be a decent head as well. Probably worthwhile in your group.
Yeah. Let's move on to this week in coronavirus then. Do you want to start us on that, Tim? What happened on Tuesday? The Tuesday, first day of the new news cycle after our last show.
Yep, Tuesday 19th of May, this season's Challenge Cup final. Of course it's me that's doing this because it's supposedly at Wembley. Whether it will be, who knows, has been postponed after the Rugby Football League conceded it will not take place at Wembley Stadium on the 18th of July. However, the RFL remains hopeful of staging the competition this year and playing the final at the National Stadium, even behind closed doors. If it is, I'm going to go to Sainsbury's and do my shopping at the same time, because I can just about sort of walk past, and Sainsbury's is just around the corner.
I think you'll be able to find your way in.
I've got my RFL pass.
Exactly.
Yeah. The 6th round draw was made only days before Rugby League was stopped because of the coronavirus pandemic.
Sarah, what happened the day after?
Yep, so on the 20th of May, 4020 News reported that the RFL has provided possible scenarios for the 2020 women's season. This includes a start in August or September and a grand final no later than November. A virtual meeting with representatives of the 10 Super League teams was held on Tuesday evening, where planning was updated to provide possible scenarios for shortened seasons beginning in late August or September, depending on the public health situation and government advice.
I enjoy the term virtual meeting. It was a real meeting.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they ran through a scenario of what a meeting might be like. It was an actual meeting. It's just no one was in the same room as each other. The way people phrase things these times,
Yeah.
Not that 4020 News aren't doing a great job as being one of the new sort of forces in reporting rugby league news. Of course, we'll say that, but It just makes me laugh
superfluous
every time
detail.
anyone refers to anything as like the NFL draft was a virtual draft. I was kind of thinking, what? So this isn't the real draft? Like, we're going to get to go again if we don't like who we've taken.
It's interesting, isn't it, where you put virtual in the sentence.
But yeah, did anyone listen to the 4020 Not Live podcast last week at all, where they had a couple of players from the women's game on? They had help me out.
Some people.
Faye Gaskin from St Helens. And the prop from Leeds, who, why does the name escape me? She even sponsored us for the charity run that I did.
Oh, Mark, that is shocking.
You don't mean Danica, do you?
Danica Preem, yeah. They had those two on it, and Phil Kaplan made a really interesting and what sounds like a really good idea. Oh, well, there's less at stake with the women's game. We could get that back earlier because the clubs don't have the financial burden of bringing players out of furlough because they're unpaid, and it's there's less people that need to go to those games. The less people there at those games, that sort of thing. And then Faye Gaskin said, yeah, but lots of us are like key workers or stuff like that. We've all got jobs, and the extra contact and stuff that you'd be putting yourself in those situations, I think lots of people wouldn't be happy to do because they want to go to work as care workers or supermarket workers or that sort of stuff. And I was like, God, every reasonable sounding idea has a very reasonable sounding counter issue to it, and it's just not an easy solution, is there, for any of this?
No.
Sorry, that's a bit negative. But anyway, Alan.
Fair point, though. Yes.
Some people have tried to come up with some realistic solutions, and they were leaked out to the press.
Yes. So it was reported on the 21st that the Super League clubs had drawn up plans for a possible return to top flight action by mid-August. 12 sides are hoping the matches can be played in front of limited crowds from the 1st of October. The plans will be put to the RFL Board of Directors this week. 3 models of fixtures have been put forward, which would see the season end in a grand final on either the 28th of November, 12th of December or mid-January 2021. The aim of each model is to restart the season on the 16th of August and play 6 rounds of matches behind closed doors, scheduling multiple games at a single venue over a day or a weekend. Results from before the shutdown will stand, and any postponed games would have been played likely in early August before the general restart date. So the 3 models are... So Model 1 would see 9 rounds of matches between the 1st of October and the 15th of November, with 1 playoff semi-final and the grand final on the 28th of November. Under that plan, the Challenge Cup would restart with the 6th round in late August, with the final on the 25th of October. The second model would have 11 rounds after the 1st of October, with the grand final on the 12th of December and the Challenge Cup final on the 8th of November. Both Model 1 and 2 would involve 5 rounds of midweek matches as well as weekend games. And the third model is the most ambitious, with 15 rounds of games played from the 1st of October, culminating in a grand final in mid-January and a Challenge Cup final on the 28th of November. The before midweek rounds of fixtures. Option 3 would require approval from the broadcaster, Sky, create a potential problem with some players' contracts only running to November 2020. Supposedly so the second one would do the same, which would impact next season, which is currently due to kick off on the 28th of January 2021. So there you go.
We ran an SLP poll, didn't we? And got plenty of views in on this one as well. So it's a hot topic for everyone. In the poll, we basically asked people to vote for which option they preferred: the option that ended in in November, the option that ended in December, or the option that ended in January. And the results of that poll were 64% voted for option 1 to end in November. Why do I keep getting that wrong? To end in November. 24% voted for option 2 to end in December, and 12% voted for option 3, which would take us into the new year. Loads of people got in touch about this, like we said, so let's get some of the listeners' views first of all. We'll start with Mark at Wilco2205. He said, it's got to be option 1 for me. The grand final is in January. It leaves very little time for the If the grand final is in January, it leaves very little time for the 2021 season, especially if we want an England warm-up game or two ahead of the Rugby League World Cup, since the Ashes are surely off. Finishing November leaves us in a much better state for next year. Tim, what did...
Also on that point, if we are trying to play, over through Christmas and through November, December, January, there's going to be some shit weather at some point that's going